Hello, heathens.
Hello, heathens.
Hello, heathens.
Hello, heathens.
It's just me and Nicole saying hello, heathens, the whole episode.
We're gonna have that episode. Hello, heathens.
It's just 45 minutes of hello, heathens. You guys would be like, and unsubscribe.
or, or
Or, hey, could you guys do another
we
episode like
blow.
that? That's the episode we blow up on. That'd be hilarious.
You really gotta say these two women say hello, heathens.
It's just 45 minutes of them saying hello, heathens. It's so good. You got to listen to it.
Or give me one of those. What's that weird thing where they talk like this into the
Oh,
microphone? And we can just
ASMR.
do. Yes.
And they
Give
like
me
rub their
one.
nails on the microphone.
Uh,
I don't like it. I don't like it. Nope. I don't like it. I'm like, I never notice small noises like that usually. Like, I don't know, like, lip gloss coming out of the thingy and like making the little noise. But
yeah.
like ASMR, I'm always like, go. I want to hear that.
That's how my world is all the time.
Gross. I like it.
Like I'll be listening to something, I can hear their mouth cheeks rub a cat. You know how it like makes a noise when you talk?
Ooh,
Like
yes.
I can hear that in people.
Oh my God. You know what I like the most? I talk about this often is I might talk loud and I have a cackle. I know I have a cackle. If she's loud, she carries, and I don't mind it. I got it from my grandma. But most of the time in my household it's pretty quiet, especially when I'm here by myself. Because the babies are lazy babies, and I love this about them until it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and then that witching hour hits, and then they're like, it is playtime to the fun time. But outside of that, like most of the times when I'm here by myself, it's so quiet in my house. Like I'm not like a big, if I do listen to music, it's lo-fi or it's sound bowls when I'm home because I just like the
hmm
vibration of it. Or like lo-fi doesn't, it's like background noise. But if it's like, unless I'm actively doing something like researching, watching YouTube, something like that, then it is dead ass quiet in my house, and I love it. And I think the cats love it so much because the minute that like Jordan gets home and he's doing stuff and stuff's going and he's got everything on, and there's noises. My cats are like, loud noises, mom, loud noises.
We're out. We're
Help me.
out.
I'm gonna
You have to give them
hide.
those scent deprivated ear things that you get for people, the loops.
Yes, I did think about getting a Lucifer one of those thunder jackets where it's like anxiety jackets for cats and dogs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I thought him feeling embraced in a hug all the time would help, and then I was like, man, would that make it worse though? Because the minute I take it off, it would stress him out even more.
That's true. I never thought about that either.
Yeah. Overthinking, which is what we talked
Oh,
about last week.
overthinking is amazing.
And today we're talking about psychological projection, just to make this very clear, not astral projection. Because when I was looking up projection, I kept getting redirected to astral projection. And I was like, listen, not today.
Not today. We'll do
Not
that
today.
later.
We're doing that later, not today.
Later. Later.
Uh so yeah, per usual, we'll start the definition because it was like
That's always a good place to start.
I always feel like it is too, just because it gives us a good
hmm
grounding to go off of, and like I don't know, it's simple, but like it's this one was like I had to then explain it for myself, so I'm going to do it for you guys too. The definition of projection is the process of displacing one's feelings onto a different person, animal, or object. And the term is commonly used to describe defense projection, attributing one's own unacceptable urges to another. So, like, for example, if someone continuously bullies someone, the bully might be projecting his own struggles with self esteem onto the other
Right.
person. And I was like, that was a lot of words.
That was a lot of words, actually. Bless you, my child.
Oh, thank you. I needed that. Yes, give it to me. LVX. That's my favorite you do. Um, So basically, the definition is also saying you're turning your feelings into attack on someone else to avoid dealing with them yourself, essentially, to dumb
Right.
it down for myself. It's 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 the fact that like we're gonna obviously go into it much deeper, but we all know what projection is, and I want to make this clear towards the beginning because I know that's like where you hear the most and then you hear the end usually in like a speech. That's why I pause podcasts a lot to like take it in.
Yeah.
um I want to make it very clear that as the same with narcissists, okay, we cannot go around telling every person in the world, well, you're projecting on me. Okay. Projection, the intention behind this episode is to recognize it within ourselves, not to recognize it with others, not to be like, well, Cassie and Nicole and Heathens for the People told me that you're projecting onto me. No, it is for you to start recognizing it within yourself. And if
Yeah.
you recognize it within another, it's for you to understand so
Right.
that you can deal with what's happening instead of using it as an attack. Because I like
Or a
cannot stand
defense.
it. Yes. Yes. Because like we use these words projection, narcissist,
Narcissist,
gaslighting, all these
gaslighting.
freaking terms to come after other
Because
people.
now it's trending, right? Like
Yeah.
now they're gonna ruin magnesium because they like it trended for some fucking reason, right?
Oh, I know. I saw that. I was like, God damn it.
I
You, we
know.
can't have nothing nice.
Seriously, because you know, they take it out. It really is very interesting because it makes it less important somehow.
It does. Once
It
things become a trend, you're exactly right. It's almost like it steals all the energy from the thought, is how
yeah.
I see it.
Yeah, like it distracts the soul from it.
Yes, and sometimes it turns us off from things too, right? Like especially like magnesium's a good one, right? Where it's like magnesium actually is really good for you. You just need to know why, and you need to know why you're taking it, how much to be taking. And to be honest, I feel like that's where holistic doctors really come into play. Like our doctor, Dr. Sarah, we love
Mm-hmm.
her. And she has us both on magnesium, but for specific reasons. We know
Right.
why we're taking it, how much we need to take, all of that. It's not
Absolutely.
because of a trend. And I feel like when those trends happen, it can turn people off from stuff because it's like, God, I'm sick of hearing about it. I don't want to hear
Well,
about it
that
anymore.
right. Well, especially like if we're talking about narcissists or projection or gaslighting for that matter. First of all, we're using these words and we don't even know what they mean. Second of all, you are using it as a defense mechanism.
Freaking shield, man.
Right. So if I tell you, like, hey, I've noticed this about you, and you automatically go, well, you're just projecting on me. Possibly, right? Possibly, because I can see it. I possibly could be. But that doesn't mean that we have to negate what somebody has said to us. We really have to go and go, well, why?
Right.
Why did this show up? Why is this in my face? Because if it is there, it's something that I need to look at, which is a lot of the stuff that I got or I watched Teal Swan, which I have done many times with projection because I found myself projecting in my classroom, in my magical classroom. Um, there were I think, being brought up in a household that did not uh we were glorified as girls or females, but we also weren't necessarily empowered in such. It was still in a masculine, feminine kind of power. So I was almost in my femininity. I was almost supposed, the way I took it was that I was supposed to be like a man in a female body.
Yeah, I get that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, fuck, where was I going with this shit?
You're talking about projecting in your classroom.
Oh, so thank you.
You're welcome.
So when I see females in a classroom setting, I immediately disarm them. Like, oh, she's this and she's that. Because again, these are aspects of myself as a feminine that I have deemed bad or wrong. Like she's a little too much and she's a little too this and da da da. Surely, egocentric, very driven, very this. This other one was, more of that like, yes, girl. Everything was a yes. Everything is happy. Everything is like, no matter what she's feeling, it's always got to be, it's almost like this false persona that she puts on.
Yeah.
Um, so then I look at that and and I've already like, okay, like that's it. Well, these are aspects in myself that I've deemed bad or wrong. So I don't integrate them in myself. And I didn't take that opportunity until I talked to my mentor and I was like, is this blah, 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 blah. So I could get a sounding board, right? And he automatically goes, you're projecting. And I was like, fuck me. I was so upset because I forgot about projection.
Which happens to us all, right? You could be the
Mm-hmm.
most holistic, spiritually healed, whatever the hell you want to say person. And guess what? You're still gonna fucking, for better lack of terms, you're gonna fuck up sometimes. Okay, it happens.
Well,
It's
I really like the way you said, like, we are the best at gaslighting ourselves, right?
yep.
And this is no different, right? Like,
Nope.
I know the exact words to tell me to make me empowered or to make me not empowered,
And if you
right?
guys haven't heard that enough this season, we're gonna say it again. And
Seriously,
I'll say
like,
it again.
those are the things that you've got to stick in your bag and really pull them out when you're in these troubled waters that you're not quite sure where you're at.
I want to add to your story because it brings me to this like little explanation I saw of where projection starts. It's the perfect example for what you just gave, or explanation for the example you just gave, which by the way, thank you for sharing that. But I saw that the beginning of projection is explained like this. In early childhood, we begin physically or psychically, not physically. I've read this like multiple times when I was typing it, and I was like, I want to say physically, but I'm reading psychically. But in early childhood, we begin psychically cutting off parts of ourselves, and we
Mm-hmm.
start to cut off anything we can't find a way to integrate. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we divorce ourselves from anything that doesn't get accepted or get approval from our environment, including our parents, teachers, families, friends. And we just want to be normal or accepted. So think about it like this: when you're a kid, I was a tomboy when I was a kid. I fucking love dinosaurs. I used to ride my plastic animals around the house. I was a weird kid, man. My grandma even still says, you are a weird kid. Um, and there would be moments when I was thinking about this where like you go to school as a kid, right? First time being around other kids in this kind of setting. And the minute that somebody thinks something's weird about you, or or
Mm-hmm.
they think it's weird you're being too nice and things like that, you cut that off and you throw it back into the shadow part of yourself that you're like, well, it doesn't get approval, it doesn't get accepted, like it's not normal. So all these qualities get
Yeah.
packed away into what we would call the shadow.
Mm-hmm.
And so because we can't easily identify these qualities within ourselves, our minds project them onto others.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The the defragmentizing of our whole being, because we are
Ooh.
born whole, right?
Yep.
And then out of survival, and this is no way to blame.
Hell no, it
This is
happens to all of
only
us.
right. This is only to observe and move forward to a wholeness, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So when we are born, we're whole. And then we start out of survival because we need love, we need food, we need to be taken care of, right? So we start chucking shit out that is not accepted,
Yeah,
right? And
absolutely.
that's how we're kind of, that's how we're kind of molded at some point.
Yeah, man, like a really good stupid example. just to give you guys an easy one, is my dad was really into heavy metal and old rock, old hair bands. He even liked the Bee Gees. Like my dad gave me a lot of culture in that way. My grandparents are in this 50s, 60s, 70s music. So I know a lot of music. I like a huge range of music, but when I was a kid, hip hop and rap was what was accepted. So that
Right,
was
right,
something I tucked away and I didn't tell a lot of people until I got older. And I was like, wow, I actually really like that I'm so cultured in music, that I know a lot of bands, that I can hang with
right.
the old and the young. And like I can appreciate music to where before it was like shameful that I liked 50s bands or I liked old 80s hair rock bands, like
Yeah, because
just
it wasn't accepted,
it
or
wasn't
they're like,
accepted.
what is that? Like,
You like Bon Jovi? There was a point in my life when I really did love Bon Jovi because my ex stepmom loved Bon Jovi too. We listened to him quite a lot. And I thought he was
well,
really hot with his long, curly
he was
fro.
hot. He is hot.
Oh, he was so
Oh,
hot. My God, that long, curly
he's
fro and those
so
tight, high
cute.
jeans.
Oh,
Oh,
girl,
John Bon Jovi.
stop it. Can't
Right?
even.
I know I'm speaking her language right now.
Seriously.
But like that's just a good easy example of like what that defragmentation, however you said that, that was a beautiful word to use for that, how it looks like. Now
Hmm.
imagine that's something small that's a part of me, right? But what about something big, right?
Well, yeah. That, I mean, anger is a big one.
Oh
People
God, yeah.
walk in my salon all the time, and they're on the outside, they're happy go lucky, right? I'm easy, I'm cool, whatever, that society deems perfect or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I'm over here struggling with the fact that I want to kill you
Oh,
because you have so much anger that you are not seeing, that you've built up this whole thing, that I'm over here like, huh, like
the demon barber of Fleet Street.
there's some, and it's really interesting too for me because I'm like, okay, like, why am I frustrated? Now I know, because
Yeah,
before what I would do is be angry at them,
yeah.
which is not helpful when you're running a business about hair.
Mm-mm. Really quick before we keep going into explaining projection, where it comes from, how we can heal it, I just want to give you guys a few more examples so that you guys can like start to understand this better. Because if you might have heard of projecting, but like sometimes when you're watching a 30-second video on TikTok, you're not getting enough to know other than you think that everybody else is projecting onto you. So some good examples are the he or she hates me, the they hate me
Yeah, yeah.
example. This happens
Mm-hmm.
when we believe that the other person hates or dislikes us for no reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
And believing that someone hates us is often a result of projection. If we have a strong dislike for someone in the first place, it's common for us to protect ourselves against the feeling by projecting it onto somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So, another example is the women on woman hate. We do this, we see this a lot. She's so ugly. She's so fat. She looks like a slut. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Woman on woman hate, talking shit about their appearance. This happens for every other person, every other
All
kind
the
of
time.
person. I
Right.
personally just see it most in women. That's why I'm using this as an example to be clear. But this is a mechanism veiling of your own body, your deep body issues, your own body image issues. You're
Yes.
deeply insecure about your own body and thus consciously, unconsciously projecting this loathing out onto others.
Very much so.
I have one
I
more.
mean, with that one, there's an example that I have, especially with like different generations,
Mm-hmm.
especially because I'm raising a daughter, so I definitely had this in my face. Um, Still to this day, I struggle with some of that, right?
Yeah.
We would be in my suite, and I'm 46, and I grew up in an era where if I dressed and showed too much skin, I was a whore.
Yeah, same. You're
And if I'm a whore, I'm not going to be loved. I'm not going to be taken care of. I won't have a future,
gonna be cold and on the streets, baby.
Right, right. Spinster.
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 Hot.
Harlot. And the way that looks is a lot of times we think it's funny, but the way it looks is, oh, where's your pants? Like, you didn't put any pants on today?
Mm-hmm.
Or like, put some clothes on.
Uh-huh.
Or like, yeah, and it's women hating women because we're so good at doing it. We've been taught very much so that we're all in competition. If, and there's not enough to go around.
Yeah.
So if I get what I need, you can't get what you need because then there's not going to be enough for me in the long run.
Yep.
Right. Which
Yep.
we do it with men too. It just looks different. Right.
Yeah, yeah, that's why I said the disclaimer of like everybody does it to everybody, regardless of what you look like or how you who you feel as a person you are. It's just that we mostly see it in women because we have a lot of women in our salon too. And
Mm-hmm.
we're a lot around a lot of women. So we see it a lot. We see it a lot. It's
It,
unfortunate.
it's definitely, and it's that older, younger,
Yep.
that kind of thing.
I
Because this is
can't believe she's wearing
evolution.
that.
Right. And I even had to like I'll say it and I'll be like, oh, what the fuck? I did it with Tren one time and I was this, and this is where I caught it. So she was putting a bikini picture. We went to Florida. She took some really good pictures. It was a nice bikini. It wasn't like it was whatever. It didn't matter.
It looks
She
good and
had clothes
everything.
on, right? She put it on Instagram, right? Because that's what you do.
Yeah.
And then she was telling me, we were sitting there, and she's like, oh, this guy on Instagram messaged me, blah, blah, blah. And I go, well, that's what you get for putting pictures on the internet like that. I stood up immediately and was like, I'm so sorry.
Did you
I'm
barf in your mouth?
almost, I did. I was like, I almost cried. I was like, I am so sorry. That is not true. You can put whatever you want on the internet. You are allowed to love your body. That was my programming. That was my like wound. That was like, I'm so sorry. Like, oh my God, I could, it was like all the instant was right there and I saw everything. Right.
You're,
Like,
you're such a good
oh,
mom.
well, I mean, they help me. They help me a lot.
You are a
And
good
she
mom.
helps me. She helps me, right?
Heck
Like
yeah, she
she's
does. She helps me in my grown womanhood. Are you joking?
yeah, like
Holy fuck.
Jesus. Oh, I was like, because I learned at when she was very small how she would project back to me what I was doing to her.
She's good at that.
And I was like, because I remember it very clearly of either. She said either as a young child, and I was like, where the fuck did you pick up either? I was not even aware that I would say, no, you can't do that, and you can't do that either.
Hmm.
So she started saying either, and I was like, where are you getting this from?
Yeah, dude, you want a mini mirror, have a kid.
Have a kid,
Um,
dude.
have
Every
a kid,
time.
dude. I have one more good example and then we can keep moving on. But the last one, I feel like this one's important too. It's if I can do it, other people can as well. Pisses me right off. Your
Mm-hmm.
reality is not the same as others. Okay, you guys, we all have different levels of capability. And what you're doing by that is you're showing your inadequacy that you feel inside. If you don't feel like you're capable of doing it, but you're pushing yourself to, well, if I had to do that, other people can do it too. That's
Oh,
a projection that can be really, really toxic. It can be super frustrating for you and others, and it can lead to a
mm-hmm.
ton of disappointment because now you are
Mm-hmm.
putting people at expectations that you're not holding yourself to.
This is definitely a personal one for me because I am such an achiever and such a strong like workhorse that like I remember, especially through my spiritual journey, you're sitting there, you're broken, you're crying because you're trying to let go of something. And you're like, well, why do I got to do all this bullshit?
Oh
Why
God,
can't
yeah.
they do it? Like, they have to do it too.
Oh yeah.
Why am
We
I doing this?
I went through a period with you too, where it's like it's just so hard to be around people that don't do the work.
Right, right.
Ew. I legitimately said that, you guys. There was a point in time where we're
Mm-hmm.
doing all this shit. We're having the dark nights of the soul, which never stopped, by the way, but it
Yeah,
was
right.
harder then than it is now. And it was like these moments where it's just like you're dealing with all this shit with other people, but you're dealing with your own shit, and like you're working on it and you think other people aren't, even though we might be again at different levels of capability. And instead of recognizing that, you get frustrated and you're like, I don't know, why am I doing everything and nobody else is working on themselves, and it's so hard to be around them. And it's like, oh man, now that I can see past it, it's like, dude, projection.
Right. But like that's the thing is that's why we say that you have to go through it. The
Yeah.
only way is through it.
Mm-hmm.
So you do stuff like that. So then the nice thing is that you have compassion for the next people that are coming up or that are at that level. You recognize yourself in them at that time, at that level. And
Yeah.
that's where compassion comes in, right? Or
Yes.
understanding, even like, I get it. And not in a like, I'm a superficial kind of, or a superior being.
No.
No, it's like this, like, oh, yeah, yeah, I
It's
get you,
like
girl. I
human to
get it.
human level kind of
Right.
it's like an understanding of like, damn dog, I have been there. I can tell you it gets
Yeah.
better, but I can try to help you through it, man.
Right. Like I can hold your hand a little bit, maybe give you some words of wisdom, hopefully. But like that's the process, right? And it's a hard one to sit there and say, like, meet people where they're at, right? Like
Yeah.
we're all, again, we're all having these experiences for a reason. And
Right.
who am I to judge whether it's bad or good?
Right.
And we
Absolutely.
technically. Okay. So what is that it? What are you doing?
Oh, I just figured we keep talking and talking here, man. I was gonna say, so basically, when we're doing projection, I hope you guys also realize now that we are almost one full season in, that what you're doing is basically an energy exchange. You're giving these really uncomfortable emotions that have a certain energy tied to them to somebody else. And it just, think about it like this: you have this really shitty emotion that you're feeling that you don't want to deal with, and you're unconsciously giving it to somebody else, and then that person snaps on you. And to you, it comes out of no reason, out of nowhere. But also, what you're not realizing is that for them, it's coming out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it's most of the time because that energy, that projection, you're shoving that energy out onto somebody else and being like, well, I'm not dealing with it, you deal with it. And they're like, what the fuck? Where did this come from?
Right. Because you have no idea. That's why the four agreements are so important because you're not supposed to take anything personally
Mm-hmm.
because it's not about you, right?
Right.
But what I will say is this is that you can use projection to refine what you need to work on to just be aware of the things that you're not aware of about yourself. So if
Absolutely.
you have this person that comes up and comes up and comes up, what in you is making that come up? Or like we all have that person where like I don't like her, or I don't like him because of this, like he's too bossy or he's too, whatever. We all have those peoples in our lives, right?
Right.
Those are aspects of you that you have deemed bad or wrong, and you have not integrated them into your soup. Your soup is unbalanced, and that is an ingredient that you need.
And I will add to that I was gonna the way I was gonna phrase this was to be clear with projection. The problem isn't that we project onto others, okay? To be honest, it's normal and it's a healthy part of processing in our own development. But the problem comes when we don't recollect our projections and integrate them in our late potential. We don't give it back to ourselves. We don't
Right.
bring it back in and look at it and be like, okay, how am I going to integrate this, because this is a part of me. So
Mm-hmm.
like, we're all going to do it. We still do it. You will always do
Absolutely.
it. It's the part. It's normal. It's normal.
Well, and these things that we've done, bad or good, they're not bad or good,
Yeah.
right? Like if anger is not bad, but yet all of us suppress it,
Yes.
right? Because
Yes.
it's not acceptable.
Yeah.
I mean, we see that with like Karens and stuff like that. We think they're so bad, because they're outwardly expressing this anger, this like, and it's funny because I just had this thought. What if we manifested Karens because we have suppressed them so much that it's concentrated so much that it actually formed into an actual person?
Yeah, I could see that. Well, and by doing this too, we're creating a false sense of self that
Yeah.
portrays us as the victim. It portrays us as the good or righteous person when in reality, it's our own shit.
Yeah.
It's our own shit. But we're it keeps you feeling valid sometimes. When you don't pull that back in and integrate it, it keeps you feeling valid because then it is going to attract a Karen. It is going to attract these things and these people that are yelling at you for no reason. And like you're just sad and like you can't handle it, blah, 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 whatever. Whatever the case may be, you're pushing that energy out. Remember everything that in it's what's within is without.
Mm-hmm.
There it is. I was like, what is the words? I won't.
What are the words?
Words are hard.
Um, let's see here. What did I wrote down some things.
Yeah. Just a little 3 pages worth of things over here. It's fine. Something simple. Yeah,
Something
see,
simple.
same. I'm like, dude, I have so much to talk about with projection. So I'm like, we need to get down to the nitty gritty of it, baby.
So what we're doing is because we've separated these pieces in ourselves and they're not integrated into our being, our whole being, we feel empty. So we keep trying to feel this emptiness with things that can't fill it. It's a puzzle piece. You can't make your own puzzle piece to put in that puzzle. You have to like find that piece so it fits perfectly there. And that's where awareness comes in. And a good way to kind of become aware is again, it goes back to what don't I like in this person? If this person is like, we'll say lazy, and I have deemed laziness bad, then I'm going to sit there and project. And we do this especially with our love interests because our love interest makes us a whole person. They hold all the cards that we have deemed bad or wrong.
Well, sometimes good too. Sometimes we don't like it in ourselves that they have a quality that we don't.
But
And
we're not,
so we're not what?
it's not bad or good, right? Like it's,
Well, I'm saying like it's what we deem as bad or good. I'm just
mm-hmm,
saying that it's not always just that we're pushing away what we've deemed wrong. It's what we've deemed right too. Sometimes we can't see that in ourselves. So then it becomes something that we push away as well because we've deemed it as too good for us. We're
mm-hmm,
not good enough for that. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just adding to that.
Oh, I lost everything. Uh, I don't know.
Okay, well, I was going to say too is like if you're a chronic projector, you can also experience like this is where a lot of your anxiety can be coming from around other people. And like if you're feeling a lot of anger and disappointment and resentment and things like that, it could be coming from projection as well. And the more that you become aware of that, the more that you'll be able to start understanding where those feelings are coming from.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because that's your mirror. That's why is this triggering me? Why is this part of like, why am I feeling this way?
Yeah, absolutely. And basically projection is a form of emotional displacement, and we think it's going to make it easier for our lives because everybody else is responsible for our misery when in fact it makes you feel worse in the long
Mm-hmm.
run, gives you all those feelings of like anger, resentment, anxiety around other people, all these things. They hate me, they're mad at me, they don't like me.
Mm-hmm. That self-deprecation talk.
Keeps you in the victimhood, man.
So let's see here. Okay, so there was a couple of things that we can work on. Look at negative traits about other people so that you don't, and these are things that basically, especially in your partner, if you look at your partner and you found the negative traits in it, these are the ones that you are missing in yourself. You've deemed them bad or wrong. So the thing is the questions that you want to ask, it's not about judging it good or bad. It's about where's that in me and looking for it. Because as soon as you sit there and go, well, my husband is lazy, then what in me has deemed laziness wrong? What is the positive aspect of being lazy? Um, why was it dangerous for me to be lazy? What can I learn from being lazy and being vulnerable enough to actually like kind of an open mindedness enough to really look at those qualities and traits in the specific thing that you're looking at that is bugging you so much about that other person, is
Yeah.
look at the flip side. And it's not like doing it like, well, laziness is fun, or not like disassociating from it, but actually like, look up laziness. What does laziness look like? What was it in my childhood that made it bad or wrong? What does laziness actually look like? Like a healthy form of laziness, like, or rest, or, those kind of things. Like, look at the broader picture, step back a little bit, open your mind and see the whole thing. Because the problem is that with these things that we're going to start digging up, is we're going to be super triggered by it. And then we're going to either stop because it's hurtful and painful to us, or we're going to not dig deep enough
Yeah.
because it is hurtful. It is causing pain because
Right.
that's where it all came from. That's why we put it back there in the first place, is because and then also look at the first reaction you have with the specific feeling, because that's how it was when you showed that feeling. Say I was lazy and my parent immediately, or my caregiver immediately, like yelled at me or shamed me or whatever. And that was exactly when I put it away and I was never lazy again. Right. Like, or I try to strive too much, or whatever the opposite, whatever was deemed good at that
Yeah.
point of time. Right. What I got love for.
Right.
There's another thing. It's a little experiment that you could do, is with people you trust, of course. And this is a part that's where you're going to have to be vulnerable, is have them write down the aspects that they don't like about you, and then objectively look at these and look where the patterns are. So if you have like, oh, you're too bossy, and then you go over here and another person, you don't even have to have names for these, right? Like you could just get the cards. Like if they were 3x5 cards, in my head they were 3x5 cards, then like if this one says negative and this one says negative, or this one says bossy, this one says bossy, then look at bossiness. Like what is it about, go down that rabbit hole and really see and meditate on that aspect of like, well, I have to be positive because I have to control everything. Because if I don't control everything, then everything spirals out of control and then I have chaos. And then I lose, I stop paying my bills and then I lose my house. And then we could really death spiral all the way down, right? To the fact that we're homeless and that we're shit.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know why I wrote that down. Uh, so now when we go back to judgment, because what we're going to be doing is judging these like intricate parts of ourselves that we haven't noticed or we've, that are painful. Judgment is not bad. It's a way to process and really acknowledge stuff um, that we need to acknowledge. Where we get to a little sticky is when you start to give them titles of whether they're bad or good. You have to objectively look at these judgments and integrate what it's trying to tell you.
Yes.
And that's my TED Talk.
I feel like that's a really good exercise to try to do. I think the one that like God, you have to be if you're gonna do the one where your friends tell you about yourself, make sure you're in a good place and that you know it's coming from love. And you could even tell them, like, hey, listen, I know this is gonna come from love. I'm just saying it so that we both are aware, so that I'm like making myself realize it even more. And then they can validate that. Yeah, dude, you're asking me to do this. I do
Yeah,
love you and I don't want to hurt you. You know what I
you're
mean?
you're
Just to,
giving permission,
yeah.
and there's a big aspect between that. Like you're giving permission.
And I think speaking it out loud to them too also makes you recognize it even more to where, like, okay, we both set our intentions before this. Cause like, I feel like you could really easily get your feelings hurt if you're not in a place to do that. But like, I think what would help with that is like making sure that you make it clear to yourself out loud to them.
Absolutely. But also when you're at that kind of level of work, you're going to be a little more like aware of like, I know this is going to hurt and I know
Yeah.
I'm going to get triggered. And, yeah, it's a little harder to kind of like get out of that soup kind of feeling or that mud. But like, when you get it back, you're almost hungry for it at that point because you really are trying to integrate your whole self into this, right? Because I feel like if you're actually going to go to this step where you're actually going to like get a group of people to write down your like things that they don't like about you,
Yeah.
like you would have to be at a place where you were brave enough to do that. And I feel like if you're brave enough to do that, you've already got your tools in line to be like, yes, I'm triggered by it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the point,
Right.
right?
To
I'm
look
so
deeper into it.
right.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be triggering.
Right. If it's not, then you're like, you're probably not at a place to look at something that could potentially be
Yeah,
something.
I wouldn't start with that.
No.
But
um,
if you're not brave enough, you're not going to start with that. Do you know? And
no,
I'm not, and I don't mean that as like a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, that's fucking scary. I don't even know if I want to do that,
I
right?
don't want to do that.
No, I don't.
If you're to
I'm
that point, kudos, man. Kudos.
right. Or maybe even talk to a therapist about that, because that would be a really nice, loving, safe environment that you could really like work through it with another person.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is like, what do you see in me or whatever, like that kind of thing. But then really like, okay, but I'm going to say this, it's going to be triggering. Or even like a lot of times they'll ask permission, can I say this?
Yeah.
And that
Right.
gives it a little softer, it rounds the edges just a little bit, right?
Yes.
Because we all desperately want to be whole. We all desperately want to, I hate to say fix myself, but like, that's what you and I have like strive to do, right? We see these aspects that aren't making us happy, that don't make our life positive, and we want to fix it, but shit, that shit's scary. And those monsters in that closet I put there a long time ago, and they're probably pissed. So, like coming in and like asking permission and like being in a vulnerable position and then getting used to being vulnerable
Yeah.
is another thing that we really can strive to do.
Right.
Because I know that I am not. one that likes to be vulnerable.
You don't like it, but you do it.
I'm like, huh? No.
Um, okay, the last thing that I have that I wanted to talk about, something that I didn't know was a thing, and it's basically positive projection. I know it sounds weird, but I'm going to explain it because this is actually a real thing that I've witnessed and I've actually done myself. But basically this form of like projections called the hero worship. And I had never heard of that. It's a form of projection that happens when we project our greatest potential and possibilities onto other people. And it's not in a bad way. It's in a self deprivation way. There we go. Basically, let's say that there's a public speaker that you just absolutely admire. That person becomes larger than life to you. And you're also an aspiring public speaker. And you follow the work of your favorite speaker so carefully, you know everything about them, and you're idolizing them and you're hanging on to their every word. You admire their effortless comfort and their calm on stage, and you're absolutely in awe of them. You're actually projecting because you have disowned your own confident part and have identified with a more anxious, fearful part of yourself. And I know that for a second I had to take that in because I was like, holy hell, I have definitely done that, to where I have made it now myself. I've made them the hero instead of one of my fellow human beings. And I have put them on a pedestal and made them better than me because I don't feel like I'm good enough to do that. The only difference between you and the speaker is mainly that they're putting forth the effort to be on that stage. And we all have insecurities, including that speaker. So the problem with this and what can happen with this is when we have this idea of strength and capability and attributes, achievements of a person like that are so beyond what we believe is possible for ourselves, and then we see that person fail or not be the image of strength, and we get to know the real person behind their social mask, you can start to experience, you could be shocked, confused, and then you can get rageful. And then we get into a state of disillusionment and we feel betrayed or tricked when our disillusionment was because we unconsciously project our own potential onto them. So conditioning can cause this conflict between our true selves and who we're expected to be too, right? And our true selves can be pushing these positive qualities of ourselves away because the mind doesn't like the confusion. Your mind gets like all in its head about being confused, like I couldn't do that, and like they're just so much better than me. And so we push all these positive things about ourselves into what's called the positive shadow, is what I've seen it referred to as. And I really like that because I have definitely done this with like even hairdressers that I see on stage teaching things that I know like the back of my hand, and I'm just like, wow, they're so great, they're so amazing. And then I get a little bit of like fangirl where like I don't even want to meet them because I'm scared to meet them, because I'm like, I don't know, I don't even feel like I'm good enough to meet them, when it's really just that they're putting in the effort to do it. They're up there, they're doing it. And so what happens is when we don't know how to bring these positive qualities back into us, our mind is left with only the options of projecting it onto others. When we don't know how to integrate these positive parts of us, we just, that person's so great, they're just the best person in the world and they're doing so much for themselves. And it becomes this thing where we start putting ourselves down because of it. And we start shrinking ourselves and we're hiding the potential from within us. We aren't even conscious of what we're truly capable of. So I actually found like an exercise for this specifically too, of how to start reclaiming those positive shadow sides of us, which I actually want to do this exercise myself because I was like, this is cool, because when it comes to like speaking even about stuff like this, sometimes, yeah, I get in my head about it and I'm like, oh, there's just so many people that are so much better than me. But then I hear people that be like, oh, I love listening to you talk. And I'm like, what? So it contains of 5 steps. And step 1 is going to be thinking of like that person that you admire / envy, because sometimes it's also envy. and start making a list of qualities or attributes that you admire or envy about them, and then choose one of them to work on first. So then step 2 is going to be envisioning what it would look like if you embodied that quality right now in your work, or say it's your relationships, or like just your emotions, something you really admire about somebody. What would it look like if that was you? So then step 3 is going to be, again, get a journal, baby. Get a journal. And we're going to describe in our journal how embodying that quality could change your life. And we're going to start describing it in detail, all the things it could do for us. So then step 4 is going to be brain listing a storm. Wow, that's what I said.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I heard it right.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you did. Because I heard it right, didn't say it right. So if I did, you did too. So then we're going to brainstorm a list of things that we can do each day to start strengthening that part of ourselves that we're trying to start integrating it, as if we're strengthening a new muscle, right? Like you go to the work gym, you're doing this thing because you want to better this muscle, you want your back stronger, things like that. It's the same thing. We're going to start thinking of things we can do that's going to, let's say it's just be more confident with new people. What can we do to start strengthening that? So then step 5 is act as if. We're going to start acting as if we already have the quality. We already are a confident person. We're confident talking in public or whatever it may be. We're going to start integrating that, and we're going to start acting like we have that. But what I wanted to say at the end of that is just remember to always, we say this a lot, but I think it's very important to continually keep telling you guys, is just remember to always give yourself grace and stay conscious throughout that process, because it will become more of you each day. But it can get discouraging if you have like an off day and all of a sudden you're not confident again, or you don't feel comfortable talking in front of people, if that's your goal or the thing that you decided you wanted to work in. So just give yourself grace, be patient with yourself. Again, it's like working a muscle. Like I said, it's a new muscle, one we didn't even know we freaking had. It's been tucked away. We didn't even know. It's like, where'd that come from, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
well,
yeah,
it's just like if you're drawing or if you're painting, the first painting you do is not going to be a Rembrandt, right?
it's
Or
gonna
a
be a stick
Picasso.
figure, baby.
Right. And then the next one and the next one. I mean, even like my journey in ritual magic, I knew it was going to be a habit, like a thing I do every day. And I did beat myself up when I had off days, but I had to remember it. Luckily, I feel really connected with my guides because they step in and they go, no, you are energetically working out. So you're going to need those moments of rest because because if we know about muscles and how like when you work out to build muscle, you tear up those fibers when you're working out and then they grow stronger. And that's what makes you like a stronger being, right? Well, you do the same thing energetically. You kind of have to push it to that threshold and then rest, because then your body like comes up and meets it. You're pushing that level and then bringing it back up.
Can I use an example that I watched you do that I didn't even
So,
realize you did this?
yes.
You really admire people who can read fast
Mm-hmm.
and read well. And I watched you realize this about yourself. And then I watched you start working this muscle out. I watched you start watching videos on how to read better and like how do people
Mm-hmm.
read fast. And I literally watched you start doing this to where you could read faster. I know it's like not the biggest example like public speaking, but I do remember watching you do this and actually
Mm-hmm.
practicing and working on yourself in that way, where you were like feeling better about yourself in the way of like, I got this. Let me read. I got this.
Well, yeah, and you had said this like because I had read you something out of a book just randomly. I didn't even think about it, right? And you were like, "Dude, you read that so good."
I was in shock a little
And I
bit. I'm
was
not
like,
gonna lie.
I'm
Yeah,
like, "What? Tell me more."
I remember you reading this so clearly and so well, and I was in your salon and I sat in your chair and I looked at you and I didn't hear a fucking thing you said other than it sounded so, the way you articulated your words and you said it and you didn't stutter
Mm-hmm.
and all these things that we normally struggle with. And I was just like, holy shit, dude. You read that so good. It was like a cool moment because like it's just something like that where it's like you could read good. It's a new muscle. You haven't really, when's the last time you worked on it other than being hounded as a kid and then being put down for not being a good reader? So you shove it in your head that you're a good reader and you push this other positive part of you that could work on it to the back.
Well,
And you
and
said
yeah,
like,
that's very much exactly how it all went. Like I was told, even by a professional, that I was dyslexic, right?
same.
So then I owned that as my thing, right? Like, well, I can't read because I'm dyslexic. I
Yep.
can't read, I'm dyslexic. And that's the great thing. The great thing about alchemy is a lot of these old fucking books are not on Audible, but I need the information. I need, like, there was like a drive. I need this information or else I have to have a better understanding. And the only way to have a better understanding is to look at these like philosophy books, these alchemy books, these history books, these religious books. This is where I'm getting all of this knowledge, and they don't always come on Audible
Right.
or in ebook, or like I have to read it, right? Like, so it was almost like that thing of like, well, I just accepted it.
Yeah. You no. You worked on it. You worked fucking hard for that shit. And I was very
Yeah,
proud of
dude.
you because then you read that
Thanks.
to me. I was like, damn, bitch, you just read that like a fucking pro, man. Crazy. So, like, I just wanted to talk about that too, because I did not know there was that hero worship part of us. There was this part of us where we push all these good things about ourselves into a corner and it's all positive, but it's in the corner. And we're like, no, I can't do that. They're doing it better.
Yeah, it's that compared, like they do it better than I do. I could never be like that because I wasn't born that way. I mean, that was a big thing when I decided I wanted to be a witch. Well, I can't be a witch unless I was born to be a witch, right?
Right.
Like if I didn't have like generation of women that sat around a cauldron and like,
Yep.
right? Like it's very interesting because it's, and it's hard too because we romanticize these people that we see only a glimpse of their life. And
Yeah.
the funny thing is the glimpse that we see is the thing that they've practiced the most.
And they might be the most insecure in.
Right. But they have what they need to put them up, like whether they have a support system, whether they have a cheerleader back there, whether they have somebody that's like, you can do this, bro. Like look at Michael
Yeah.
Jackson. Michael Jackson was a brilliant person, right? He was a brilliant
Absolutely.
like songwriter. He was a brilliant dancer. We got Thriller out of that. We got a lot of really great music that is still played to this day.
Right.
And but yet so terribly shy,
Yeah.
so terribly, terribly shy. Like if you ever watch interviews with him, it's almost painful to watch him.
Another good one, Lady Gaga.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal performer. She
Mm-hmm.
deals with chronic pain every day of her
Mm-hmm.
life, and it makes her feel inadequate. It makes her feel inadequate. If you've ever watched her documentary, it's kind of the same thing, but with physical pain. Where I'm like,
Yeah,
how could she feel so inadequate? She's like one of the best performers. I love her. I love her
right.
music.
We think she's so confident,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because that's what we've deemed confident to look like.
Michael Jackson made up moves we'd never seen before.
Yeah. And
He
put music together that we've never heard before,
he
right?
literally
Like,
performed in hundreds of like thousands of people. Crazy.
but scare, I mean, this is why, the comedian that's the funniest ends up committing suicide. It's like these things that we've romanticized this person, but and I know we've heard this before where we sit there and say, well, they put on their pant legs just as much as one at a time that we do, right? they still have it just because they have somebody has honed their talents in front of us,
And
doesn't mean that they don't have any of the things that you're dealing with as well.
yeah, I agree. Um, a good example of this is like too, this hero thing is like having your dad be your hero. They're your strength. That you call them for literally everything. You couldn't do it because your dad can do it. And if you could do it, you don't know that about yourself because your dad did it. And the minute your dad fails or your dad has something go on with him where he can't do it, like let's say like my grandpa doesn't have anxiety, but let's say he did and he had a panic attack and now I think he's weak. And now I'm having a
Yeah.
complex because how dare he? How dare he do that? He's supposed to be the strong one. You were projecting all of these positive things about yourself onto your parent, expecting them to never break, never fail, never falter. When in reality, those are positive qualities in yourself that you admire about him or
Mm-hmm.
them, your mom, your dad, whoever it may
Mm-hmm.
be.
Well, and they have, when we're kids, our parents are gods.
Yeah,
I remember that there was a point where like I realized that my parents were people.
me
And
too.
that is a weird concept to like have.
All of a sudden, my grandparents weren't just my grandparents, they were my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, all boundaries of what I could talk to them about were gone.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I can talk to you guys. Wow, you guys have had sex? That's weird. But then it wasn't weird because I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. You're people too.
You're people too. Would you want them not to have sex? Like
Right. It's like, oh, you guys like to play games and be like little kids too? That's weird.
you're like me too.
But like me too. So like let's be friends. Can we be friends?
Can we be friends? Well, and something nice about like, some family, because I know not everybody has the same experience, but what I found that's kind of comforting sometimes is the fact that these people have known you for so long and seen you do stupid ass shit
Oh yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
stumble, and they still, you know, love you and stick by you and like all that kind of stuff, right?
I think
Like,
this might go a little off, but speaking of this, I think my favorite thing is becoming an adult is being able to uh atone to all the things you did that they didn't know you did when you were a kid. So funny. My grandparents are hilarious about it. But it's like, it's fun to be like, I did that. And they're like, really? And it's like, yeah, no, yeah, I definitely did that. And it's kind of
mm-hmm.
fun because it's like you guys get to like really get to know each other outside of just the parent kid bond.
Yeah, you've taken that veil or that boundary away, which is really nice because then you're kind of connecting on more of a human level than like a parent kid kind of thing. I mean, that's the one thing that I really like about Trinity and I's relationship and yours and mine is that like it is a little uncomfortable for me to know certain things about her life, but I also enjoy them so much because I feel like I wasn't allowed because I would have gotten in
Yes.
trouble or whatever. Like I wasn't that you don't do that, right?
You
Like
didn't have
so
this the safety either to
no.
tell and not get in trouble and be, you're a bad kid for doing that, man.
Right, right.
You
I mean
harlot.
even Harlot, Harlot.
I appreciate watching that from my end too about you and Trinity. It there's like this thing that happens, you guys, when you don't really have, well, when you don't have parents, not really have, you don't have parents in your life. And you have friends that are parents in your life that are really good parents. It's healing in a way. I say this to Nicole all the time. Her husband Rob has healed a lot of my daddy wounds.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them, of course, because he couldn't do that. He's not responsible for that. But just watching him and Trinity be a really cool daddy daughter duo, where of
Yeah.
course he has boundaries. He's her dad. You know what I mean? She's a girl.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
he's a dad and a dad, not like just a, he's a dad, an involved dad. So like
Yeah.
it's nice to watch healthy boundaries, but it's also really, really cool to hear all the things she can talk to her dad about and all this bond they have that I didn't get. And it's like super healing. There's something healing about watching your friends be good parents and have a good relationship with their kid.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool.
Well, I feel like it's really nice because you realize that there's other ways that like that could have been done, right? Like,
It's fine. I'm tearing up.
oh gosh, I'm
Gross.
not crying, you're crying.
I'm tearing up, man. It is. It's just
Mm-hmm.
every time I say it, there's something to it. It's really healing. It's awesome to freaking watch. Like a kid feel like her parents have her back. A kid feel so safe and secure. A kid to not be going through traumas that we most millennials, older millennials, and ages above went through. And some kids still are
Mm-hmm.
younger than us, right? But it's really cool to watch it like in such a true form where like Trinity understands that you're her parents, but she also thinks you're her friends.
And we
She
are,
and you are.
right?
Yeah, you're
Like
not just this glorified figure.
no, I tried to be really transparent and my main statement on what I'm doing is A, I'm gonna fuck her up anyway. And
So
then B, I just am giving her exactly what I needed where she's at. Because I know so deeply what I needed,
yeah.
right?
Well, what it just hit me is in speaking of this hero worship projection complex is watching this and her not having that. When I say this kid, because she is still a kid, even though that's hard to fucking reel in sometimes, this 16-year-old girl is a phenomenal human being. She has a fuck ton of confidence. Yes, does she have her moments of anxiety? Absolutely, we all do. But she, when she wants to do something, she fucking does that shit.
Oh, girl, there's nothing stopping her. Mm-mm.
Exactly. And it's because she doesn't have this, my mom's got to do that for me. My dad's got to do that for me. Like, I can't do that. When she want stupid shit, man. She wanted to paint her wall. She fucking got the paint and the brushes. She did it. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Just like that, even. It's like to where I could have gotten in trouble. And like, if my walls needed to be painted, then I would ask somebody to paint them. Like, I wouldn't just do that shit myself. It's just stupid shit like that, to where even that just, it's cool to watch a kid grow up not having that kind of projection,
Mm-hmm.
the
Because I
hero
even
worship.
find like at 46, I feel like sometimes I still need permission to do things. Like I forget I'm an adult.
Yeah. I feel that too sometimes. And it's not because of Jordan, but it's just my own shit where I'll be like, hey, do you care if I like put this on the wall?
Right.
Like, am I gonna get in trouble for
Right. Right.
that?
Like, are you
And then I'm sure Rob does the same thing where he's like, I don't fucking care. Or he's like, uh, sure, why are you asking me?
yeah, I remember the one day where it switched was because I asked him something and then I was mad for the answer because he gave me what he thought, right? And it's not the answer I wanted. And he's like, well, you asked me for permission, or you asked me. And I was like, oh, I asked you. Oh. So then I went through a whole thing where I was like, I told him
Yeah.
what I was doing, right? Instead of asking. Like I didn't even realize it until he like brought it to fruition and I was like, I am asking. That's so weird.
I stopped doing it about like our schedule. The baby's coming to stay with me this Saturday, and I was like, hey, the baby's staying on Saturday. He was like, all night? And I was like, yeah. He's like, okay. It was like, why would I ask you for permission? We're not doing anything. We're sitting our asses at home. I'm gonna have my little
Mm-hmm.
sister over. It's like shit
Mm-hmm.
like that where I'm like, hey, we're going to do this if you want to come.
Yeah.
And it's nice because I don't feel that need anymore. And there's a respect there in the way of like, sure, you can do whatever you want, man.
Right. And you're not giving them responsibilities that they're not responsible for.
Yeah, exactly.
So it makes the relationship more balanced because you're not putting them in a dad position or authority position, right? Like you're not asking them permission, but you're not also not being a dick and being like, fuck you, I'm doing this anyway, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not like that, but it's,
No.
you know, it's a healthy, like, hey, I'm doing this and I'm just telling you out of respect,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Like, but
Would I do that as well sometimes? Yeah, let's be honest.
well, I mean, yeah, that's
Depends on
different.
Situation.
That's a whole right.
Oh, well,
That's a
sucks to
whole
suck.
different
I'm
thing.
doing this.
Sucks to suck. Have fun at that bullshit.
Yep, I ain't doing that. That's so funny. Man, I feel like we could go on and on about projection because I feel like the more that you become aware of it, you guys, the more you realize when you do it, and it could just not even be bad things. It could be good things. It could be everything in between. It could be the most horrible freaking thing. It's all perspective at the end of the day. But
Mm-hmm.
like the more you start becoming aware of projecting, man, the easier your life will get once you start integrating that shit back in and start dealing with it when you can.
Right. And I think the key takeaway for me at this point, just to have a little like tool in your pocket that you can use out in the real world, is that as soon as you hate that person, that's you.
Yes.
It's not them.
I'd say my other the second one would be don't assume. We say it all the time, don't assume.
Don't assume.
If somebody got angry at you and you didn't do shit to them, don't assume that it's about you.
Right. Don't assume. Again, we need to do a show on the four agreements as well.
Yeah, we got to do the four agreements really bad. I mean, God, you guys have heard it all season one.
Yeah, and it's a really cool like tool thing to put in your tool belt. It's really easy to grab a hold of and be like, am I taking it personally? Am I assuming? Am I using my words for the best ability? Am I doing the best? Am I being impeccable with my words? That's what I wanted to say. Like, are we
I knew
doing
what you
all of
meant.
that? Right.
Well, friends, I added the
That's
four
it.
agreements to the list, and it's not
There
what
we
we're
go.
talking about. So next week, Samhain will come out.
Mm-hmm.
And then after Samhain, we're talking surrender.
Ugh.
A little prelude of that one. Be another long episode for you guys because that one's going to be rough, but good. Rough, but good. New
I
level, new
agree.
devil, man.
New level, new devil. Ain't that the truth? Well, finding a new way for surrendering actually is very nice in the scheme of things because when you fought things your whole life, surrender is very peaceful.
Preach it, mama. Preach it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, friends, I think that's going to end our episode on projection. We gave you our intentions and our wishes, and now we shall say goodbye.
Goodbye.